This is Process and Reality, the only officially unofficial guide to reading Alfred North Whitehead. I'm your host, Tyler Davis. Welcome to the show. All right, welcome back. Last time we left off on page 15, and we'll go ahead and continue there. Philosophy is closely allied with religion and science, no matter what people in each of these disciplines say. Philosophy does its job best at fusing the two into one rational scheme of thought, and as such, it's a higher order discipline. That's what he refers to as of primary importance. It's more important. Not in that it's more central to the human experience, it's more important in that what it deals with governs the truths of those other things. It gives it more of a rational explanation, a universal explanation. Religion also has a job. And that job is to connect our general principles to the emotions and purposes that spring out of a society in a place and time conditioned by a social setting. So religion takes the general ideas and translates them into specifics, namely specific thoughts, emotions, and purposes. So the aim of religion is to stretch the individual's interest beyond the individual's self-defeating particularity or idiosyncrasies, limitations and failings and qualities of individuality. Philosophy takes religion and modifies it. But in the reverse order, religion is part of the data of experience which we must account for in our philosophy. Religion is a craving to infuse into specific emotions the non-temporal, that is to say, eternal but not atemporal, general concepts. The difference between non-temporal and atemporal is that non-temporal is eternal, but within time, atemporal is external to time. In more evolved organisms, the difference between the rate or speed, or as he says, tempo, of the mere specific emotions of the individual and the individual's experience of the concepts produce a life tedium, or angst, or existential dread, or pure boredom and drabness, unless we fuse the specific emotions of the individual to the concepts we are after properly. These two desires of the organism or individual need reconciling, in which the emotional impulse of the individual illustrates the general concepts and thereby justifies these concepts, and in which these concepts connect to an emotional illustration in the individual's experience. Our human desire for an intellectual justification of experience has been the power which advanced European science. In this limited manner, scientific inquiry is a variant form of religious desire or interest. For example, consider how dedicated science is to the pursuit of truth as an ideal. However, science and religion diverge sharply over the phases of the individual's experience they are considering. Religion is focused on harmonizing rational thought with the sensory experience of sensory data. Science is focused on harmonizing rational thought with the data itself. When science deals with emotions, it deals with emotions themselves as data points, other people's emotions and not our own. Or if they are our own, they're the ones we're reflecting on and not the ones we're immediately experiencing. Religion, on the other hand, deals with the formation of the experiencing subject. Science, by contrast, deals with objects, which form the first phase of the experience. There's some ambiguity here to what Whitehead means by thought, but I'm just going to venture a guess and think that he's referring to the previously mentioned emotional experience of the subject. Then it seems to kind of make sense. So perhaps we might also consider this to be a reference to a self-reflective kind of thinking. So the subject originates in some environment, and then science comes along and reconciles the emotive experiences of the subject with the primary matter of fact. which is the particular relevant details of the subject's environment. Then religion comes along and reconciles the emotive experience of the subject to the subject's own reaction in that process. So to make this concrete, consider for a moment a person who gets angry after being cut off in traffic. The scientists, broadly speaking, might look into social context, scan their brain, try to understand what led up to the cutting off. It really depends on the discipline, but the fact of the anger and the situation is a matter of study for science. Religion, on the other hand, would offer to reconcile the subject to the experience of anger itself. Those conflicts and disputes among you, where do they come from? Do they not come from your cravings that are at war within you? James 4:1. The religious impulse is to reconcile the passionate subject with their own reactions to sensory data. The scientist limits themselves to the data itself, both that of the cause and that of the effect. Science must examine religious experience in its data. Religion must account for scientific concepts in its own concept creation and articulation as it seeks to reconcile the subjects to their own experiences and their self-reflection. In conclusion, Whitehead reasserts an old doctrine. The self-reflective nature of human thinking results from our intense, sensitive experiences. This phenomena stands out as an ultimate claim of existence. The fact that we are experiencing seems to insist the fact of our existence. Additionally, empirically speaking, humanity has developed self-justifying thoughts in three ways. First, a complex process of generalizing the findings of specific disciplines. Second, through using our imaginations to create schemes for our general ideas. And third, through repeatedly comparing our speculative scheme with our direct experiences that our scheme is supposed to apply to. Now, there's no justification, none at all, for checking, i.e., stopping the process of generalizing at any particular stage in our investigations. Each phase of generalization exhibits simplicities that jump out at us as being more important, and only at those phases. There are simplicities, or more general ideas, is another way to put that, that are connected with the motion of a bar of steel, which we obscure if we refuse to abstract our thinking from merely the specific individual molecules. By extension, there are certain general truths about reality that we obscure when we only focus on some particular detailed mode of thought or discipline, for example, physics, biology, economics. The general truths are subject matter for speculative philosophy. Philosophy becomes useless, however, when we indulge in brilliant feats of explaining away. In other words, explaining away data that is not accounted for in whatever our favorite school of thought is. Explaining away phenomena is trying to apply the wrong tool to the sciences. Philosophy ultimately appeals to the general consciousness of what we experience in practice. In other words, philosophy is after those general ideas that seem to account for what our practices are. All the presuppositions of our social expressions throughout the eons need to be accounted for in our theory. We must balance bold speculation with complete humility, disciplined by logic and facts. Philosophy that is neither bold nor humble is a disease that reflects the temperamental presuppositions of popular, eccentric, or otherwise quote-unquote unique people. For example, we wouldn't recast all of our scientific theory depending upon a single performance of an unusual, unrepeated experiment. The ultimate test is widespread recurring experience. This is true for philosophy as well, and the more general our rational scheme, the more important it is that we're able to repeat our findings in the experiences of everyone. The useful function of philosophy is to promote the most general systematization of civilized thought. We tend to operate between two poles of specialization and common sense. The duty of special sciences is to modify common sense. Philosophy, on the other hand, is the act of welding imagination and common sense into a restraint upon specialists while enlarging their imaginations. And forgive Whitehead for using a mixed metaphor. By providing general ideas, philosophy should make conceiving of the infinite potential, which is yet unrealized in nature's womb, an easier task. So what I want you to leave with today, if anything, is just a general understanding of process. Is some of the biggest ideas. Process is ultimate. Creativity is ultimate. That's the main idea of this. And as we make tentative assertions and test them against reality, we need to remember always to be bold and to be humble. Thanks again. I'm Tyler Davis, and this is Process and Reality.
Actual occasions, realizations, metaphysics, philosophy, and set theory notation. My boy, Whitehead in the house, negate the negation and head south, down beyond the subject, the object, and into superject. Let me project, your mind will be wrecked. Process and reality, you won't know what to expect. Officially unofficial, totally bingeable.
Process and Reality, the only officially unofficial guide to reading Alfred North Whitehead and process philosophy. Available wherever you get your podcasts from.